So this is super informal. This is not a serious talk whatsoever. I'm wearing sandals. I want you guys to feel welcome on our property. This is the conversion of my late father's workshop into my workshop, which is for bodies. So I'm pretty excited to share with you guys this space. It's something that I've been thinking about for a really long time. And actually the reason why I moved back to the Comox Valley. So working with athletes in Australia, getting back into that space, working through a government organization, or at least a sports organization. I didn't have the scope to work with athletes the way I wanted to. I was able to create a whole bunch of programs and create an influence, but I really love working with athletes in the gym, both on the court and here. So this was the concept. It was to create this lab to work with athletes from a long-term development perspective. So one of the things that I really want to come here and support through All Stars Beach, which we're doing, potential influence through indoor, but more specifically this space right here, is work on a longer trajectory with young athletes. So a lot of striving athletes here today, which I love, a lot of athletes with goals. A lot of the current culture from what I've seen is very short-term focused. A lot of the language is short-term. There's a lot of short-term pressure, and we're kind of forgetting some of the principles, or at least going against the principles of what is called long-term athlete development. So there's a lot of research on long-term athlete development, and the conclusion is we want early exposure and late specialization. So we want to play different sports, we want to do different things, and what happens when you play different sports, or at least separate sports or seasons, is you have an off season. And off seasons are where you heal, and off seasons are where you train to get better for the next season. And what's happening right now in sport, and I've seen this within higher level organizations, they're kind of going against these principles, as well as sports that are driven by organizations. And I'm not coming at anyone here, it's just where we're at. Youth sport as a business is doing more and more and more. And so what's happening is individual sports are taking up more of the calendar year, and you're kind of stuck in that one sport and you're playing more and more and more. And parents don't necessarily know what to do about it. Athletes think, I got to play for absolutely every single team, and I need to do more. And we're at a point where we can't really do more. We've run out of time. We don't have any seasons left or off seasons left. We can't expand anymore. There's more travel teams, not hating on them because they have a place in an athlete's development. We need to learn how to win at a local level, regional, provincial, national, international level. So there's a pathway that we need to follow, but we're at a point where doing more doesn't necessarily make any sense. So I would love to create an antidote, a little counterculture movement around how do we take some time out of a calendar year consciously, and we really focus on building athletic qualities. And that's going to hopefully get us ahead. That's going to be, hey, 1 year I'm going to focus on this, and then when you come back to whatever higher level sport, as someone who has selected many teams and been a part of selection panels, I'll never say no to a super gifted athlete that's a little bit less skilled. I will always select an athlete that I look like, oh my gosh, that person's qualities are incredible. I can teach them how to play volleyball, but the athlete who is crazy skilled and has never taken an off season for 5 years, but is lacking those physical qualities, at a certain point in time, the athlete who potentially comes in laterally is going to slide in over top of them. That's just the way it is. So the conversation here is not to tell you to stop playing the sport. I'm certainly not advocating for you to not play for any teams. The conversation I want to have is how do we get better? How do we strategically support you as individual athletes who are aspiring to get better? And so I want to present to you just a couple things. I don't intend for you guys to take notes. I'm filming it, so I'll send it out later. Really, this is an educational piece. Take what you want, and then we can go from there. I'll talk a little bit about what my plan is here, but I don't have a sales pitch for you today. This is just an opportunity to talk to people that I know are interested. So many athletes are asking me, what do I do? How do I get strong? How do I train? How do I get better? Well, let's have a conversation about that, and if you choose to do whatever you want to do, hopefully this will inform that. If you want to jam, perfect. So what I would love to do is just kind of dive into a couple high performance, and maybe I'll take a step back. I despise it when we talk about high performance. High performance is an international level in my opinion, and we want to talk about full-time training environments where you're either living in it, you're surrounded by professional staff, you have everything that you need to perform at a high level with high performance people who are professionals, PhDs, that kind of thing. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the performance and the development side of things. So that's really where I'm focusing this conversation. So the first one is the SAID principle. Does anybody know what the SAID principle is? No one's taken strength and conditioning at university yet? Okay. So specific adaptations to impose demands. Specific adaptations to impose demands. And what that means is your body is only going to adapt to what you request of it. So you can't train your calf and have your bicep grow, right? That just doesn't make sense. So your body will change as a result of the stimulus that you provide it. And that goes to muscles, but also goes to your nervous system. It goes to plyometrics. It goes to all kinds of different things, cardiovascular changes. So you need to apply a certain stimulus in order for your body to change in the way that you want it to. So a lot of people will not necessarily have a plan, go to the gym and hope for certain things when they're just not actually doing the thing that they want, which is always quite interesting. So you have to train the thing that you want to get the thing that you want. It's essentially what I'm saying, okay? The next one is going to be progressive overload and diminishing returns. So these are principles that we need to respect when we're training. So progressive overload. Anyone have any guesses on what progressive overload might be? Yeah, what's up, River?
When you do like 4 reps at a certain weight and you keep doing it until you can do 4 reps at a higher weight.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's a way to approach development or improving, right? So you described that, absolutely. What are some ways that we might be able to change the overload? So what did you say? You said 4 what?
4 reps.
Reps. Okay, reps. Awesome. So reps is one, to give you guys a little clue, a little nugget. What would be another thing that we can change to progress the load? So who here's trained before in the gym?
Straight up weight.
Hey, weights, right? Kilos. This thing never lies. It's a beautiful thing. 45 pounds is always 45 pounds. So you can add more to that. Absolutely. That's exactly it. What else? What can we change?
Time under tension.
Yeah. Oh, hey, now we're talking. That's a hot topic right now. So good. Time under tension, for sure. So you can manipulate that through sets as well, right? You can go tempo. So slowing things down and speeding things up, that also creates different adaptations. Intensity, frequency. So there's a lot of different things that you can do, and what winds up happening for athletes who don't necessarily have a plan is they just throw everything at themselves and they don't actually wind up improving because they're just all over the place. Or my own personal peeve is you see someone training and they've never changed the weight. I find it really difficult to work out in public spaces just because I just see all kinds of blasphemy happening. But what we need to do is we need to progress, right? We need to add something sustainably in order to create some type of stimulus overload change. Now, the second principle, which is what the person who just does the same thing all the time, is called diminishing returns. So your body, as a biological function, is trying to find a way to do less work, always. So that's an explanation for COA in practice. That makes tons of sense, but I'm totally kidding, mate. That was way too pointed. Total joke. COA is very efficient. That's what we'll say. Very efficient, mate. So the conversation around diminishing returns is the second you do something for 4 weeks, if you continue to do that same thing, your body will figure it out and say, I got this, no problem. And I don't need to use as many resources to do the thing, and you wind up getting less from it. So the diminishing return conversation is if you just do the same thing, you're spinning your tires. You're totally wasting energy and you're not getting what you want to do. So we're always playing a fine balance between managing progressive overload, which is strategically trying to manage sets and reps and weight and intensity, while also not doing that for too long where we either essentially have a diminishing return or we hit a plateau. And that's another conversation, which is you do something for long enough, your body just adapts and you need to shake it up in some way, shape, or form, okay? So the next one's gonna be super compensation and overtraining. So we wanna create a stimulus, I'll create this line, and then something happens where we need to recover. And in an ideal world, we come back a little bit higher. So we're trying to create an impulse that then, hey, we need to recover now from this thing, and then we come back and we super compensate. So we're compensating and progressing over time. That's the game, okay? But what happens is if you train too high, you go too hard, you go here, now all of a sudden my recovery window is a lot more. So if you train too hard and then I need to practice here, I need to practice here, well, I'm not able to have a great practice and I'm probably not recovering super well. So we need to manage the intensity and the recovery because the gains happen not while you're training, the gains happen after you've recovered. And that's kind of the no off-season conversation playing for every team. When are you recovering? I've seen athletes fall asleep. I do breathing exercises with some championship teams or teams when we're at championships, and legitimately kids are falling asleep during the breath work because they don't sleep. They're playing video games until late at night and getting 4 hours of sleep, and they're trying to play, and before a finals they're falling asleep. It's wild, but it happens. So we need to find a way to sleep, it's a separate conversation, but manage this load. But what winds up happening is over time, we are going downhill. That is not good. So we need to manage recovery. We need to give ourselves the right stimulus to be able to progress. So we're balancing all of these things. How many of you have all thought about these things while you're training? Right? So just things to think about. And the amount of times I've spoken to athletes about this, they look at me, they've never heard of these things, which makes sense because these are university level courses. But it's really important for you if you have aspirations that you need to manage yourself well because you're all self-managed. Unless your parents are a trainer or you're going to a gym. And even then, that person at the gym isn't aware of what you're doing if you're playing basketball and volleyball at the same time. You have other commitments. So it's very difficult for people, unless you're in a high performance environment where you have a team manager who's managing your workload, it's very difficult to manage these things. And you're all young, robust athletes, so everything's great until it's not. And that's usually an injury, right? So that brings me, so overtraining is kind of where I went, and overtraining winds up leading to injury. So there's a really important concept called workload management, which is acute to chronic workload. So this is a high performance manager or performance manager, my voice saying, okay, your weekly schedule, ideally as consistent as possible. You're comparing a 1 week of training to other weeks of training within a month, okay? So you're looking at a single week window of training and what you're doing within that window. Each one of those weeks, 4 weeks, creates the chronic. So acute is 1 week and chronic is 4 weeks in a row. And you're looking for a ratio, and the sweet spot is in between just below 1 up to, let's just say, 1.2, 1.5. So if week to week you are managing your workload, let's just say we're going to start to play indoor volleyball pretty quickly, okay? Some of you might be in that situation. We're going to start here, and then we're going to go here, and then we're going to go here, and then we're going to go here. That's perfect scenario because this allows us to have that kind of 1.2, 1.25 increase in load week on week, and the body's going to be able to adapt to that, okay? In reality, what happens is this. And so this spike, when we move into a 1.5 ratio, we increase the risk of injury by about 3 times. So for every week that you train, and then you increase that training week on week, if you increase that too much, the chance of injury is humongous. And once again, you are all robust young peoples, parents included. You can manage that for a time. But then usually later on in the season, we talk about fatigue. We talk about patella knee pain. We talk about shoulder pain. So there's a lot of things. Oh, I'm playing 2 sports for just a little bit. It's fine. Sure, but how is that impacting you in your long-term development? So really important conversation around how are we managing getting better? Because, okay, indoor season's coming, I'm going to start training in the gym, and I'm going to start training indoors, and I'm playing basketball. No hate on any of those things. It's a conversation about management, or you're doing other sports, whatever that looks like. So just having an idea as an athlete, once again, an aspiring athlete, if you arrive to university or college and you're an absolute disaster, that's a problem. The coach doesn't want a disaster. They don't want to inherit a disaster. And you, oh, I made it. I'm at college now. Like, no, mate. The work starts when you get there. So how do we appropriately lead into that? I'm open to those conversations to help you guys through that. And that's something that I'm going to focus on here is being able to train these things while we are aspiring for long-term goals. So the last one, and this is, once again, in a vacuum, this all makes sense, but this is not what actually happens. We have kind of this preseason, take a little bit of a downer, and then we go into our main season, and then we're kind of going into maybe playoffs, and then we do championships. And within that, we have these cycles of training where we're looking at increasing, that's totally not together. Let's just say this one right here is the season. These are our micro or macro cycles of training. We want to wave things appropriately so that ideally we have some pretty good moments here. Championships, we're having some good moments here, and then we're peaking here. That's in a vacuum. That doesn't happen anymore. Multiple sports, club, school, and we're trying to train and all that kind of stuff. It's just the way it is. So how do we try to come out of this where we're not an absolute disaster at the end of the season? Because guess what? We got Team BC. It's the truth, though. It is what it is. And so I'm here not to challenge that model. I'm not going to say all the teams that contribute to that are bad. No one's necessarily bad, but you as an autonomous person need to manage yourself well. It's just the way it is. You need to understand these things. You're here listening, which I'm super grateful for that. How you prepare yourself is really, really important because the expectations of you as athletes is getting higher and higher. The stakes are getting higher as everyone's mining for talent earlier, scouts are coming earlier, all the rest of it. So these are interesting parts of the current culture that is sport. My hope is to be able to support people in a sustainable way to at least have a baseline program and a baseline place that they can come and manage that and increase their resilience, increase their robustness, so that workload ratio isn't as crazy. And over time, we're finding a way to get better because that whole time, we got to find a way to get better too. So how we manage all of that, that's the fun one. That's the life's work fundamentally. Some people get PhDs to go through that. I certainly didn't do that. I guess I've done my PhD in being in the field, working as an athlete and working with athletes. So those are essentially the concepts that I want to do. And the last one is just to throw out, because I think there's a few other athletes in here with different sports, like what are some of the athletic traits that you guys want, or that maybe let's play this one. We all watched the Olympics. I hope we did anyways. What are some of the athletic traits, and shout them out, that we saw that we want, either through the sport that you want to play, and I'm assuming there's some future Olympians in here as well. You guys are aspirational that way. What are some of the traits that you saw that you want, or that are necessary for you to succeed in your sport? Shout it out.
Resilience.
Okay, I like that. Yep. And that could be mental and it could be physical for sure. What else?
Consistency.
Consistency. Sweet. Okay. What else? It can be physical.
Vertical.
Yeah. Thank you, Cole. That's the low-hanging fruit, or low-hanging fruit. What else? What else do you see?
Explosive or quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So explosive. And there's so many different sports that are just wildly explosive. You guys see the thighs on the speed bikers? It's like unbelievable, but fast as well.
Focus.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah. What else?
Precision.
Oh, I heard decision as one. So what was precision? Ooh. Okay, and what was the other one?
Discipline.
Discipline, yes. Oh, I like humility. We also saw some examples of arrogance. We don't need to train that one. That's innate in some people.
Confidence.
It's confidence? Yeah, totally. What else? There's way more internal qualities here than physical qualities. What else? Do we see strength? Who here watched Olympic lifting?
Like sheer core, like strength, core.
Yeah, core. I mean, I'll say some incredible stability as well. I'll give slash core for sure. Who here watched javelin throwing? 93 meters? Unbelievable, right? So throwing, there's a couple in here. Who here watched any type of track event, right? Speed, endurance. Let's just look at volleyball. Let's target beach volleyball for a moment. You watch beach volleyball and you thought, holy smokes, these people are what? Yeah, shredded. I mean, that's it. Yeah, but yeah, fit. That's kind of what I was getting at. They're fit, right? Super fit. How about indoors? What have we seen indoors? What are some qualities that we saw in the indoor athletes?
Power.
Yeah, nice one, Mom. Shout out to Mom. Awesome. So let's end it there. You know, there's internal ones. That's a separate conversation, but more the athletic, physical ones. The point here is you can't work on all of them at the same time. If I were to go, okay, I'm going to put all the physical qualities here. These are all pillars in my program, and I'm going to work on every single one at the exact same time. You're never going to get anywhere. So that there's a specific order to building certain things. And one of the conversations I have the most with young athletes, and I think it's probably just the lowest hanging fruit, like, I got to get strong. I got to get strong. I got to start to lift heavy. And the conversation about strength is like, yes, at a certain point, strength is really, really important. It's a foundational principle. If you're playing a physical sport, being able to produce force is important. But let's just say for the sake of volleyball, who here noticed how lean the volleyball players were? They were like not a lot of muscle, right? Right? They're super lean. It's because they're more tendon dominant athletes now. So what I've noticed over the last, let's just say 20 years, but more specifically in the last 12 since I've retired, the guys that I looked up to were jacked. They were enormous. So I thought that's what I needed to do. Now all the athletes that are winning are so skinny and so fast, it's insane. I never thought that we'd be at this piece. Now I'm speaking more specifically to what's required to excel in the sport. So without talking about, let's say, body image or anything like that, it's just simply put, the ones that are succeeding are super, super lean. So the conversation around muscle mass and strength and, well, we need to get more explosive, we need to be more fast twitch, we need to be able to move faster, that's a really interesting conversation, and that is built on strength, but then you need to move past strength into power, speed, essentially speed endurance, speed, explosiveness, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of qualities that need to happen, but for the young athletes out there who are just going to go in and just pump crazy weights, my thought process for you, okay, if we're going to break this down into from like Sept, Oct, and Nov, and December, okay, let's just say we have a few months, I'd say strength, spend a decent amount of time, spend let's say 2 months doing some strength stuff, but make sure that you have a couple elements where you're moving fast. So within your training session, move fast. Do a little bit of plyo, some med ball stuff, but make sure that there's a little element where you're doing something fast, okay? Then I would move to a little bit more power-based stuff where you're still doing strength, but you're trying to just move it more quickly, okay? And then ensuring that we're increasing the fast bit at the tail end, okay? Then once we hit season, the volume of your strength needs to decrease a little bit. And then we're still focusing on fast, and now we're looking at a little bit more about fitness and our ability to bounce and to sustain volume. So we're training twice a week, potentially 3 times a week. Then we go play in a tournament. We play, how many games are we playing in a day at a tournament? 3, 4? 3 or 4, right? How many times a year are we playing 2-day tournaments? Or are they mostly 1-day tournaments? They're all 2 days. Oh, great. Perfect. Okay, so we're playing potentially 8 games in a weekend. Potentially. Yeah, let's say 6 to 8-ish games, maybe, max 8. And then when's our training? The next day? Or the following day, hopefully. And we're subject to gym time, so like, it is what it is, right? But these are the things that we need to manage. right? So when we're in season, you know, we're playing six to eight games on a weekend, and then we're back to the gym working on strength on Monday. You know, that's not necessarily the time to be doing that. We want to be maintaining in that peak moment of the season because we might put ourselves over the edge due to that acute to a chronic workload. So these are very simply just principles and things for you to think about while you're training, while you're preparing for the season. I would also just love to say, and so we see it, rotation and overhead, and then ankle, calf. Those, well, let's just say move into knee, but volleyball players, these are really important areas for us to train. So if you're training all by yourself, doing your thing, make sure that you have a rotation in every workout. I don't care what it is, just have a rotation in a workout. Have some type of overhead movement pattern, something where you're reaching overhead as a volleyball player. If you can't touch your bicep to your ear, we need to have a conversation. We have to be able to get overhead. We need to live overhead. My mom hangs 60 seconds a day minimum, but hanging, right? When was the last time you guys hung? Yeah, hang out. Go to the gym and hang out. Go hang from a door frame. If I was all of you, I would get one of those classic chin-up bars that you put in a door frame, and I'd be hanging for minutes a day, doing chin-ups. Get monkey bars at school. Get after it, for sure. But we as volleyball players, we have to. So what winds up happening is as I raise my arm, for every 2 degrees my arm comes up, my scapula needs to travel along my rib cage 1 degree. So my scapula, my shoulder blade, and my arm are working together. But if you have a locked up scapula, because we're doing this kind of thing all the time, and then you try to put your arm up, you're going to impinge your bicep, and you're going to have absolutely no strength. So that's a problem. Your internal rotation or external rotation will be totally shot. So we have to be able to be here versus here. Really important for volleyball players. And then the last one's going to be just ankle, calf, and knee. We got to take care. So maybe not necessarily strength-based movement patterns where we're doing deep, heavy squats, but who here's heard of an isometric? Right, okay, awesome. So an isometric is where you're not actually moving, you're pushing something into an immovable object, and you're going really hard. That's amazing for tendons and amazing for knees. So you can target different joint angles and spend some time there. Spend 5-10 seconds. A great way of doing that is one sequence is you do like a 50% effort for 6 seconds, 8 seconds, take a little break. Then you do a 60% effort for 8 seconds, and then you just repeat until you hit 100%. So you're getting this overload of just static pressing, but you're creating a lot of force, but you're not moving, so you're not going to hurt yourself. And there's actually an analgesic effect in your tendons, so you can actually really reduce the pain in your tendons, which is an amazing in-season trick. Now I'm just spewing off interesting stuff, but at the end of the day, we got to take care of our ankles, our calves, because that's our contact point with the ground. And normally volleyball players are just atrociously weak, so you should be able to do one single-legged calf raise, or sorry, one leg calf raise 30 times. Like that should be your norm. And I'm gonna guess, based off of the size of the calves in this building, that you guys can't do that. Maybe the parents, I won't take it away. But that's an important thing that we need to be able to do. So how do we succeed? You know, there's a high number of volleyball players in here, so I'm talking to a captive audience. That's really important. And then our knees. So there's a concept, and this is something that I'm going to really prioritize here, is athletic range of motion. So if you have access to 100% of your joint, now you have a buffering capacity of when you're jumping and landing all the time, you still have space. You're not using the entire joint every single time because you have the space. So it's like a 8-inch travel on a mountain bike. But then if you don't have access to that full range, you only have 2 inches of travel, and you're bottoming out every time, there's a cost to your nervous system, there's a cost to your tissues every single time. So having that capacity allows you to last longer in the season and be healthier. So those are just really some thoughts that I wanted to share with you. Probably a lot there, probably scrambled some brains. For myself and what we're doing here, my goal is at some point in time in early September to get some group trainings in here. So I want to have 6 to 8 athletes working together. I'd love to have 2 senior groups and all sport. I'm not specializing in volleyball, and 2 senior girls groups. That's the eventual goal, and a junior boys and a junior girls group. So I'd love to have 6 groups working together that are committed to a long-term program. This building is not a finished product. I've taken over a building that's 35 years old. You're probably asking, how on earth are we going to train in winter in here? Ideally, we're not. So I'm going to look at creating something new here at some point. So that will probably wind up happening, hopefully November, potentially December before snows. So I won't be able to go all out and start everything fully, but this was really just an opportunity to get some people in here, share the space, share some ideas, and just put the intention out. So that's really it for me. Does anyone have any questions, want me to dive into something further? Anyone interested in understanding something, a concept, or you guys all good? I don't understand. And I think that this one's really important for me, and this is a goal. Culture is really important. So working out by yourself is great, and if you have the opportunity to do that, absolutely awesome. But when you're surrounded by people that are inspired, focused, have a vision, you have someone who's pushing you and challenging you, and you're overcoming that in a safe environment, it's pretty magical. So I didn't have that when I was your guys' age. I just essentially invented it and made all the silliest mistakes I could without meaning to. So the goal here is to provide a group of people with a great platform for lasting and impactful change so you guys can achieve your goals, whatever that is. So that's my vision with this place. I love the concept of when people make it to college, university, pro, I don't care what sport, you come back here and you put your jersey on this wall. So over time, over the next 20 years, I want to be collecting jerseys. So you heard it here first. I get first dibs to jerseys.
That's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone wants to have a workout, you can do it. But happy to stick around and answer any questions. But I'll send a video out, and once things get a little bit more clear on my side, I'll just send that information out, and we'll just go from there.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure.
Actually, I do have a
Yeah,
question.
yeah, go for it.
If we do
Yeah.
get enough, say, girls with, the senior level of volleyball or junior, you'll tailor it according to our season?
Yeah. Yeah.
And practices, obviously.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and that's kind of the way, like, my goal is not to exclude anybody. I really want to work with all sport, and the conversation of having different athletes from different sports training together is awesome.
Okay.
That being said, it gets to a point where a team might want to train, or there might be something. I'm open to those opportunities. My goal isn't to be training in here 60 hours a week, so it's a sustainability conversation, but absolutely I'm open to that conversation. Yeah, totally, thanks for that.
And for multi-sport, their season's gonna be different, so you can adjust depending if you got 3 volleyball players, 3 basketball players, hockey players, you can adjust your training for.
These are all really interesting conversations.
Yeah, I know.
That I'm gonna learn a lot because I don't know the seasons really well. I'm kind of out of touch with that. What I think the goal is here, like these were higher performing concepts where we're really pushing a lot. That's difficult to do. I think what my goal is to create a home where you're taking care of mobility, high quality movements, and probably some really functional strength with low volume. And we're progressing over time so that I don't have to adjust based off of everybody because I just won't be able to manage that conversation. That being said, I'm going to learn of what I can do, what I can't do. So we'll get there when it comes. I think athletes who are self-aware, we can have conversations around volume on the spot. I won't be able to individually train people, and hence the groups. That being said, we can tailor that on the spot. And I want to get a couple more conditioning pieces. So there's always room to do it, but it'll probably be more on the fly or just a pre-conversation beforehand. But I'm going to learn a lot. We'll see. If I don't want to do this and get super siloed in different sports. That's not what I want. I want this to be like
That's what I appreciate,
Yeah.
like I appreciate the multi-sport
Mm.
aspect, so you're not always with the same kids all the time. So,
Totally.
and you learn about others, so that's good.
Yeah, and you know, I didn't plan on sharing this, but something that really spoke to me a long time ago was hearing about rites of passages, and I see sport as an opportunity to create rites of passages and positive change for young people, boys and girls. So that's something that as we come together and create these groups, having conversations around life, having conversations around struggles, having conversations around real life are going to be some really nice spin-offs from this. We'll see. I'm not going to promise and create a program, but when I have coached programs for a long period of time, so as a head coach and the volleyball director, Sydney Grammar School for 5 years, those are some of the most rewarding times because those kids, we were able to have these deeper conversations after practice and a lot of life-changing moments there. So that's a part of when you sweat hard and you work hard beside somebody, you earn that trust. You know, it's one of the reasons why group fitness is so great. When you sweat beside someone, you immediately have connection with them and trust with them. So likewise with sport, likewise with training. So we'll see what happens. Yeah. Thanks so much.
I might have a
Yeah, go for it. Sure.
I'm not too sure if I have a question actually, but if just in listening to all the words and not wanting to be siloed and all of these really great things, would it be beneficial if, say, there was enough senior boys that could commit, that could proactively give you what their schedule will look like in the fall? Like, would that be helpful?
I think it would, and look.
Not wanting to silo you.
So I guess that my first thought was when I first moved back here, and I told Kevin this because he's come knock on my door a couple times, I'm not coming back here to be a volleyball coach. I love volleyball and I want to support the growth of volleyball. That's why you came. Come on.
We got him cornered, guys.
There will be opportunities in the future, but this is my main project. So I have a soft spot for volleyball and I want to support volleyball. But what my concern was, I went super focused and like, look, it's a tough time. My goal is not to charge everybody $1 million, and now all of a sudden everyone has to do year-round programming in volleyball, and there's 50 people that are only being served here. So I want to make sure that it's sustainable in that way. So my focus was not to come in here and target volleyball because we're still such a small community. That being said, I'm open to those conversations, and I did absolutely anticipate a senior boys and a senior girls conversation for volleyball development. That makes a lot of sense to me. That's in alignment with me. But my goal is not to focus on that. But if there's an opportunity, yeah, totally.
Are you open to do like sports psychology sessions? Like, do you have training in that? I mean, you have the experience because you've lived it as an Olympian and high level athlete, but I feel like for our youth, it's such an important piece to get to all of those words on the board. They have to take care of themselves mentally as well, and just have goals and not just physical goals, but just in terms of sports.
So yes, so this is a trick, I got you all here. This is essentially a workshop. So my goal is to facilitate workshops down the road for athletes and for teams. That's what I love doing. That's what I did that to a captive audience in Australia when I was a performance director and I had 25 teams that I managed. They had to deal with me, so I got to do whatever I wanted. Now I need to actually get out and lobby and share, but I'm not too worried about that because it's just, we're at a point where young kids are really, they have goals. They want to do it, and to just go out there and not have any plan whatsoever or any structure, like the mindset required to be a champion, champions don't happen by accident, right? Great teams, culture doesn't happen by accident. Like, that's on purpose. So yes, to answer that question, this is one of the things that I absolutely want to do. So I think it's on the board was athletic training and culture building. So I want to work with coaches as well and do some community coach development sessions. And then the last one's workshops around specific athletic skills. So thanks for asking that question. I seeded that earlier. Was it Michelle? I'm totally kidding. Yeah. No, that's absolutely on my heart and on my mind.
Yeah, it's just, that's what we're finding as coaches, or for me anyway, over so many years, is just that confidence piece. like we have to build this in these athletes so they can believe they can get there, right?
Mhm.
And they can,
Mhm.
because we see the skill, but so many times this confidence is lacking where it's like, wow, like if that was there on top of the skill, we'd be like miles ahead.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
So,
I forgot to ask the intro question, so I'm going to do an outro question. What comes first, being a champion or becoming a champion? It's a trick question.
mhm.
Do you have permission to be a champion only after you win the championship? The answer is no. Right? Being a champion is a behavior, it's an attitude, it's a commitment to yourself, it's a commitment to your team. Being a champion is more than the result. And that's where a lot of sport, where we get into the conversations of we're playing higher level teams and we're trying to go all these tournaments, it becomes about winning. And the statement about being a champion, we need to say that statement, whereas just before that it's like, I'm here to win! But then let's start to have a conversation about what it means to win. If we lose, does it mean it was a terrible game? Or no, we did what we set out to do, we just happened to lose. Or, oh, we lost, we're losers. Like, no, you need to have an understanding of what it is that you're trying to do, what those metrics are, and build over time. Sometimes winning can be the worst thing that happens to you because you cover up how bad you are. You just won and then you get away with the excuse of we won. So I digress, but yes, absolutely, Michelle, 100%. Sweet. That's a lot for one evening. I have a tendency to talk way more than I intend on talking, so I apologize for that. For those, there might be some people here that I don't have your emails, so you might have been invited or something. If you could just find a way to make sure that I have your email address, I can reach out to you afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks for
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely.